Now, Paul, you can come up and tell these people all about Champion.
Okay, well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for joining everybody. And before we talk about Champion here, too, I just want to add a little bit about the 2003 to follow on to what Tim was talking about. You know, the world's changed a lot since 2003. Technology's changed a lot. Virtualization essentially did not exist back in 2003 in any meaningful way. SANs were very few and far between and very expensive. Dual-core processors were all the rage back then, and an 18 gigabyte drive was a pretty large drive. So you know, there's been so much change and so much you really can't take advantage of in a lot of ways with 2003 that you know, we're going to talk today a lot about the silver lining, if you will, that surrounds this whole process. But a little bit about Champion. Champion's been in business since 1979. $100 million company, more or less. We are very big providers in traditional infrastructure design and also in cloud design and cloud implementation. So we span both areas, if you will. Our CEO, Chris Pyle, likes to say that Champion is changing the economics of the IT data center, and that's really the centerpiece of how we run the business. And as we said, we do that whether we're talking cloud, traditional, or hybrid. You see some numbers up there on the chart. About 1.8 million mailboxes we've moved into Office 365. We've done a significant amount of Azure design and implementation as well. So as well as lots of enterprise SANs and storage networks and servers and every other thing you can imagine in terms of infrastructure. So what we're going to be coming from today is the perspective of that kind of a company that covers both the traditional approach and the cloud approach and the hybrid approach, and our entire assessment process that we're going to talk about today, and our migration process is really all about being able to take whatever path best suits your organization in that regard.
And from the message op side, Paul, I know we've developed a lot of tools for that cloud side of the business to help people either migrate or manage what they're already running in the cloud. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. There's a whole suite of tools out there that are part and parcel of being a Champion customer. So with that, we'll move forward a little bit and talk a little bit more about Windows 2003. Now, you know, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is the silver lining or the side effects of upgrading. And what we've done with our program is we've structured this in such a way so that we believe that there's a significant payback to our client organizations. So that you know, the effort can often pay for itself and reduce go-forward costs. Of course, lower operating costs. You can be positioned to leverage the cloud as part of this activity if that's something that you're interested in as an organization. We can reduce your complexity and enhance your security. So you know, this is a very pivotal point in the overall design of your Windows Server architecture. And what we've sought to do with our program here is make sure that we are not only getting your servers upgraded to a newer version of the operating system, but really helping you do that in such a way that positions you to move forward on your strategies. So again, you know, in showing our flexibility, Kevin, I think we've lost our slide there. Could we put that back up? There we go. Thank you. There's really three major methods, and we'll talk a lot about one of them today. And the first one, of course, is upgrade the OS in place, and we're all familiar with that one. It's really a matter of overlaying it on the server that it's currently on. Might be considered one of the more common approaches, but the reality of it is that it has a tremendous amount of risk associated with it, and given the amount of time that's gone by since 2003, there's probably a pretty good chance that the platform that you're running the 2003 on may not even be suitable for the new operating systems. But that is an option, and in the case of where it fits, that's one option that we employ. The other one is more popular, and that is build a parallel server. Often this includes physical to virtual or virtual migrations, and migrate to the new server, upgrade it there, test, and so on. The third option is one that is very interesting, and we'll spend a good bit of time talking about that today, and that's migrating the applications directly to target servers. So if you can imagine a process where you can extract the application from the server that it's currently installed on, package it up, test it while it's packaged, and then reinstall it natively on another target server. That process is part and parcel of what we do, and it is one of the key differentiators of our program. And of course, regardless of which of those three methods that we're using, we can apply that to an on-premise target, a cloud target, or hybrid targets. So one other thing we want to touch on today as well is why this might be the right time to consider the cloud. And we know for some organizations this is a strong consideration. For other organizations, it's not something that makes sense for them at this time. But what we reinforce with our clients is that this is a great time to consider how you might move to the cloud, when you might move to the cloud, and make that preparation part and parcel of your Windows 2003 upgrade process. And we will dig into that a little bit more, but just some other facts about the cloud. Recently Microsoft in the Azure cloud reduced their cost by 50% and raised their SLA to 4.9 on their SQL platform as a service offering. So and Google and Amazon have introduced similar changes recently. That's rather astounding changes if you think about it, very Moore's law like, if you will, that we're seeing great reductions in cost and great improvements in availability at the same time. Of course, if you're in the cloud, you don't buy OS licensing. That's provided by Microsoft in the cloud. And of course, you can reduce your server footprint and cost. And part of that is the application consolidation that we talked about earlier with the process that we use where we extract applications and reinstall them. So imagine picking applications from servers and then reinstalling them on another set of servers in a different arrangement with different coexistence. And lastly, the cloud, of course, gives you tremendous elasticity. And those of us that have worked in the cloud, we understand that. You can add things, you can give them back, you can make them larger, you can make them smaller, you can turn them off. There's just a tremendous amount of elasticity there that can be very, very beneficial in certain environments, certainly for special projects and certainly for test development, as well as many production workloads as well, depending on the type of production workloads your company might have.
So Paul, when you said there's no related licensing to buy, you're talking about the Azure cloud there, not Google or Amazon, right? I mean, I just want to make sure they understand that's an Azure thing, and not every cloud vendor allows you to have their OS as part of the service. Am I correct?
That is correct, Kevin. You're absolutely a great point.
All right.
So a little bit more about consolidation and application consolidation. These charts really show us that some utilizations of resources, and to some degree what this shows us may not come as a great surprise to all of you, but probably the middle column is probably the most surprising part. And so all the way on the left we've got the traditional data center. We all know that given the procurement delays that exist in buying new hardware and software and deploying it in traditional manner, sometimes you have to overbuild, and that overbuilding ultimately accumulates, and you end up with fairly low utilizations on that. What's interesting though is the middle column shows that traditional cloud and virtualization has only helped that to a degree, significant degree, has cut it in about half. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of work to do, still a lot of resources in red that are not being utilized. And part of what we do as part of this program, again, this is a big part of that silver lining that we talk about, is to work with you on the idea of server and application consolidation so that we can really squeeze down the amount of unused resources that are in your infrastructure, wherever that infrastructure may be. We start out our process with an assessment. And one of the things I want to point right away, because a lot of times people think, oh, assessment, long cycle time, complicated, lots of tools, things being deployed in our infrastructure, security challenges, and all that stuff. And we'll talk more about that. But the reality of it is our assessment has been designed to be very light touch. We can typically get in and get out in a matter of a few hours. We don't do anything on site. We do it all remotely. We don't install any tools on any of your servers. It is all done through remote access via some tool servers that we ask you to provision on your premises. So just want to put that out there right away, that our assessment process is extremely painless and is designed to put most of the burden on Champion and as little burden on you as possible. This is a really simple chart here, just really to show that we go through a process with our clients where we talk about what works for you. Do you have interest in the Azure cloud? Do you does that make sense for you? Can you potentially put all your workload there, some of your workload there, or maybe none? And we take a path that follows that. So again, going back to our first slide, where we talked about Champion's ability to play in whatever flavor makes sense for your organization. This is just a reinforcement that we do that systematically.
So Paul, this is non-invasive. You're not installing anything on any of their production servers to get this information out of the system, correct?
That is absolutely correct, Kevin. To kind of boil it all down, what we ask for is for the clients to put 2 temporary tool servers in their environment. We provide the tools that the client actually installs in there, and then we work together through a GoToMeeting link, WebEx, or whatever the client prefers for remote technology, and we actually execute the assessment that way. It largely uses the WMI interface on the servers and SMB.
So, and it doesn't remove any data from there. In other words, we're not piping it over to Champion. It's staying in their environment, and then we're just really viewing the results from the assessment. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and we actually have a step in the process where the client uploads those results to us. So nothing comes back directly to us. The client actually sends us that information.
All right, because I know that's a lot of times people get real concerned about data leaving their place. So this is a way that it's contained in their environment. Only they can release it.
Absolutely, and it is all metadata. There is no end user data that is collected in this process.
All right, Tim, you want to add anything to that, or? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so again, one of the big differentiators here, and we'll show an example of one of the charts here, one of the reports, is that many assessments, someone will run a tool, will provide a lot of raw data, and present that raw data to the client, and kind of say, as soon as you figure out what it is you want to do with this data, give us a call, and we'll work together on it, right? And we haven't done that. We actually take, in a typical environment, we collect approximately 2 million fields of data. And then we correlate that data in a database application that we've built internally, and really turn that data into something that's useful, and we'll show some examples of some of that. But our goal here really is to provide that kind of correlation and to produce an actionable output, because as I'm sure many of you have experienced on the phone, a couple million fields worth of data scattered out in a lot of different places is sometimes pretty hard to work with. So we've brought all that together and put it in a form where you can look at it, where you can recognize patterns, you can see what the complexity of your migration would be, and then be able to take action on it. So we'll talk more about that in the future in just a couple minutes. But main thing we want to get across here is that analysis and correlation that we bring to the picture.
So in other words, we use standard tools to collect the data. It's really our knowledge base that we've done, because we've done so many of these, that now we can correlate that data and find out the most important stuff, and really that's what we're looking at, not 2 million cells of data, but the really important data that counts.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin, and it's really about that word actionable. We want to take the data, make it actionable, so that we can look at this data and say, okay, here's what can be done with your 2003 servers to get them upgraded and migrated to either 2008 R2 or ideally 2012 R2. So this is a snippet out of one of those reports, and the thing we want to show here. So imagine that this is 100 servers deep, 200 servers deep, 2,000 servers deep, like some of our clients, and that you've got all of this data to deal with. So what we've done is this is an output that we generate that takes a heat map approach and color codes each of these applications. Now, again, what's interesting here is we're attacking this from an application standpoint. So by at a glance, you can look at this and say, well, I've got quite a few applications that look like they're going to migrate just fine, and I've got a few that are going to be really tough, and then I've got one light green one there that's kind of in the middle. It's going to take a little extra work, but it's going to be okay as well. So that's one thing that we want to highlight here. So first off, it's application driven. The applications ultimately lead us back to the servers, of course, but we focus on the applications, and that collection of data is part of our assessment process. And then one of the things we're showing here is, and this is hypothetical, of course, in this case, but that we've been able to consolidate the applications that were on 7 servers down to 3 servers over on the right-hand side, and the resources that were required for those servers. So, operating system footprint reduction, server count reduction, and a simplification, some of the stuff we talked about early on.
So if I notice that there's a Azure compatible column here, does that also mean that these can be virtualized at the same time? I mean, because obviously to go in the cloud, they have to be virtualized to go up there. But if they wanted to keep them on premise and still run them virtual, that column would really be used for that. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it's a good question, Kevin. And right next to the Azure compatible column, it addresses 2012 server compatibility. And of course, that column varies on what our target operating system is. Some customers want to go to 2008, some want to go to 2012. So yeah, we're actually assessing both the compatibility with Azure and the compatibility with the target operating system there.
Oh, great.
Okay. So just to reinforce there, though, that color coding is indicating the complexity of migrating the application. So that's pretty important stuff. So here we've just got an example of some of the data that we're able to distill this down to. So we've got some examples of the roles the servers play, the readiness of Azure, and on the bottom left you can see the applications according to their difficulty, their migration difficulty, and this is sort of the backbone, if you will, of what this assessment is all about. Is we've certainly got all of the traditional data as well, but we focus really a lot on trying to put our clients in a position where they understand with the output of this assessment just what they have in front of them in order to get from 2003 to their target operating system.
So they're going to get these reports as part of this assessment. And I know that Microsoft and Tim and his team have been working real close with us to make sure they also get the backup data that makes up these charts, right? I mean, so not only do they get an overall view that they can present to management or but they can also have that in-depth information behind how we came up with these charts, right?
That's absolutely right. So we provide a nice report that correlates and distills a lot of this information down, making it, as we mentioned before, actionable. But we, of course, also make all of the raw data available to anyone that wants it.
Okay.
Won't spend a whole lot of time here, but we're talking about migrating applications, and part of the process of evaluating the complexity, we look at whether an application can be captured and migrated in a single step or multiple steps, and that's really what this chart is all about. So for some of the most simple applications, we can actually capture that application in one step without a maintenance window and migrate it to a new target. And again, this is we're talking about migrating applications here, not servers. So we're extracting applications from servers. And the simplest of all are the ones that we're able to move with a single sync, no maintenance window required, just one-step process. The more common ones are the middle one, the seed and sync process, where we go and we capture the great majority of the executable dynamic link and data objects, essentially everything that application requires, and we capture the great majority of them ahead of time, and then require a maintenance window to capture the final set that's locked for various reasons. This is important because in the event that it's a large application or an application with a lot of data, we can gather all of those parts up and get generally 80–90% of that application prior to requiring a maintenance window, and that allows for a very small narrow maintenance window as part of the migration process. And then the last bucket is really just acknowledging that there are some applications that have to be handled a little bit special because they're so large, and we have to be concerned with how much data we're going to collect from them, that we may have to schedule maintenance windows for those simply because of the workload that they'll put on the network in gathering up the objects. But nonetheless, this is part of the methodology that we use. Again, the big payoff here is the fact that we can move these applications to a new target with minimal and in some cases no maintenance windows that will impact production.
So these really tie into that heat sink that you just showed us on the previous slide, right? The easy, the medium, and the hard. This is kind of the same thing, right? I mean, the easy ones would be in the single sink. Is that right?
That's correct, and that basically is part of the process. Yep, you're correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. But.
So the second step of migration, of course, is building a project plan. And again, one of the reasons we want to highlight this is that we know a lot of our clients, they don't have the time to focus on this project. They don't have the time to orchestrate it. They don't necessarily have experience in it. Let's face it, nobody's ever done a large-scale Windows 2003 migration before. Each of your organizations are doing these for the first time. So to make sure that we've got a complete program, we've got a project methodology for doing the migration that includes all of the maintenance window scheduling, the categorization of all the applications that we talked about. But of course, we work hand in hand with your IT staff and your business units to make sure that we're doing that in a way that makes sense for your business, that we prioritize them in the proper order, and get them done in a timely fashion. The key role for our clients in this process is the role of application testing and test planning, to make sure that we've uncovered every possible issue and dealt with it prior to cutover. So that's a very critical role. But we, if our clients desire, we do take the project management lead as well as part of the migration step. So it's really an all-inclusive program.
So in other words, the application never goes down. You can do this while it's still running, do all the testing before you do that failover or move over to the new platform, so they never actually lose those applications during this migration process.
Well, almost. In the event that it's a large application, we might have one maintenance window that we're talking about. We have to gather up those locked objects. So there could be a window there that it's required. What we do though is we minimize that, and we also take all the risk out of the process because we're leaving the source server and application completely undisturbed through this entire process. So you're not running the risk of laying down new code and hoping that it works and then having to do a restore to recover or anything like that. So minimal to no maintenance window, but I want to emphasize that often there will be a minimal one. But one of the great advantages is there's always the back out because you're not disturbing the current.
So it's a no risk upgrade.
It's a no risk upgrade. That's exactly
okay.
Right. Okay, and then of course the once we've planned out the project and prioritize things and everything, obviously we've got to execute it, and we coordinate all that as well. Of course, at the pleasure of our clients. Again, emphasizing the client role in developing test plans and executing. That's the one thing that it's very difficult as an outside organization for us to do, is to provide that test planning, because it's difficult for us to know exactly what all the nuances are involved in how your business uses that application. We do have the ability to, in the event that there's a need for some test targets, we do have the ability to provide some Azure-based test targets to use for testing these applications prior to migration and cutover. So that's something that we also offer as part of the program. And you know, typically, you know, migration durations are highly variable. Of course, it depends a lot on the number of servers you have. It has a lot to do with your business practices, how often you can get maintenance windows according to your service level agreements that you have to the organizations that you service. Some companies can only get those once a quarter, and of course the overall complexity. But I guess the call to action here is that this largely is not something that can be done real quickly, and that anyone that wants to meet that July 14th date, time is of the essence.
So you're saying with this Azure-based servers that are available, even if people don't have resources available, servers or just resources, we can actually start the migration or start at least the testing of the migration in Azure, no matter if they're going to stay on premise or go to the cloud. It really doesn't matter.
Yes, and give you kind of a use case for that, Kevin. A client may not know what the new design is that they need for their target for the upgrade, right, coming out of this, until we get all the way through this assessment process. Correct. So but at the same time, they may want to test some applications and their compatibility and get their testing processes and their testing plans validated in parallel, addressing those kind of critical paths. So this is one avenue for doing that. If you don't happen to have a lot of extra infrastructure laying around to do the testing on, this is one way to get that done.
So when we do the assessment, we give them a guideline. They verify that guideline by doing either Azure or some other place to run the application to verify the sizing, even before they have to buy anything from a hardware standpoint.
That's absolutely right.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay.
Okay, and one of the things that we wanted to mention here as well is that our friends from Cisco have developed a couple reference architectures that they've done that are really designed to address this 2003 upgrade. They've done a couple of different sizes. One is just a basic 100 virtual machines and below, and the other is 200 virtual machines. And of course that varies a little bit depending on exactly what you need of your virtual machines, but these are just reference points. Again, the key here, I guess, is it kind of brings home just how much things have changed since 2003, and that there might be the opportunity to replace racks and racks or lots of floor space of floor standing hardware with a pretty small footprint nowadays.
And we can do this really on any platform. It's just that Cisco has actually, and we've helped them put together this reference architecture where if you want to move up to 100 VMs or virtual machines into from 2003 to 2012, we have the configurations that will support that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So we want to ask everybody, first of all, since we got the synopsis slide, to please make sure and hang with us all the way to the end, because we've got a pretty interesting, we think you'll find a pretty interesting offering at the very end of the presentation today. So don't think we're done yet. We're just going to kind of summarize what we've talked about. But I think, assuming you've got some 2003 servers out there that you need to do something with over the next few months, I think we've got an offer that you're going to be pretty excited about. So time of course is running out, and we're really at the point now where if we want to meet that deadline, we've really got to get busy. And it's probably the simplest way that I can put it. To go through the process of assessing what's there, which is a pretty quick process. We're inside 2 weeks to have that done soup to nuts. But then you've got to think about design. You got to think about implementation, and you got to think about migration and project plans. And we all know the hard part of all that is scheduling maintenance windows and coordinating application testing and all that stuff. So we definitely need to get busy. Again, we reinforce that at the very least, consider creating yourself a route to the cloud now. You may not want to do the cloud this year, maybe not next year, but maybe in 5, 6, 7 years there might be something that you do want to do with the cloud, even if you don't have a current initiative in place. So think about that a little bit now, and make sure that you're not, for lack of a better term, painting yourself into a corner with your strategy that will prevent you from taking advantage of that. And in many cases, and we're going to find in the next couple of slides that in all cases for everyone here today, the cost of this assessment can be offset by funding from Microsoft.
I know that's when Tim came in and gave us this great announcement. That's why we wanted to keep you guys on the phone. I mean, Microsoft has come out with this unbelievable leverage of this webinar to be able to help you guys get this assessment virtually at no cost, as long as you have, what's the minimum, 10 servers?
Yep. 10
so, I mean, we're talking about even the smallest of opportunities.
Okay, so just a quick synopsis on the Champion offering. It's holistic. We migrate applications, not just servers, and I can't say that often enough because people aren't used to thinking in that context. The offering includes all the labor. If you choose Champion to do your migration, it's all encompassing. It's often cost neutral. A lot of times the benefits, and we talked about it in early slides, the reduction in operating system footprint, the changes in technology today, the potential of leveraging the cloud, all those things often make cost neutral. Design services we include as part of our process, and assessment costs can be offset through the partner. So Kevin, why don't we go ahead and talk about what the next steps are, and talk about what our offer is for today.
All right. Well, it's like we mentioned. I mean, this is for a limited time. I believe Tim came in and told us it's through February 28th that Microsoft will fund this assessment fully for any companies that have 10 or more Windows 2003 instances. So for those of you that want to find out, first of all, how much is it going to cost to migrate these applications, they'll be able to get that information from this assessment, right, Paul?
They'll be able to understand the complexity, some of the potential costs thereof, and really just understand what the magnitude of the task in front of them.
So that's a big part of it, even if they're just looking for budgeting numbers. And like we said, you only have till July 14th to get this done. It's probably something that you have to jump on. it's pretty, like you said, it's straightforward. I mean, it's non-invasive. It doesn't impact your network or your servers at all, and you'll be able to understand where you are today and where you got to get to by July 14th.
That's correct, and you mentioned February 28th. That's the date that we require that everyone sign up for this offer. It's certainly, the assessment does not have to be complete by that time, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, great. All right.
So, Tim, just wanted to turn it back over to you a little bit. Anything else you want to add about this funded assessment?
Yeah, so what I would say from a Microsoft perspective is, this is obviously a challenge as you look at Windows 2003 coming end of service. But also look at it as an opportunity, as Champion has said. You can begin to move to a more modern platform. The one thing I would point out, as has been said at the end, is there's funding available to help you do this assessment. But moreover, if you're looking to go to the cloud, there's even more funding that can help Champion begin to move certain workloads to the cloud. And we have special offers at the beginning of this calendar year that allows you to do, for example, Express Route for free, run certain VMs for a certain period of time in Azure for free. So I think now is the time. There's a lot of funding there from Microsoft to help you with Champion to begin to move to a modern platform. So please leverage that funding as much as you can.
Thank you, Tim. And just to reinforce how painless this is, it's about a 2-week process front to back. It takes approximately 8 hours of your system admin's time to run this assessment. So as we mentioned early on, we try to take the burden of most of the work on us rather than putting it on you. We know you're busy, and we want to be as much help as we possibly can be. So again, no agents installed anywhere in your environment, no security access to your environment. We work all through remote GoToMeeting type sessions, and we work to get this data in your hands as quickly as possible so you can know where you stand.
All right, well, why don't we open it up to questions and answers. Erica, if you're on there, could you open it up, and Tim and Paul and myself will be happy to answer any questions that might come in.
Certainly. At this time, if you would like to ask a question, please press the star and 1 on your touch-tone telephone. If you find that at any point your question has already been answered, you may remove yourself from the queue by pressing the pound key. Once again, that is the star and 1 on your touch-tone phone. We'll go first to the site of John Espejo from Oracle Elevator. Please go ahead.
Hi, John.
How you doing?
Good.
Informative, especially the cloud part. In my company, we're very, I'm under such budget constraints. I get to hear the word no quite frequently. So from a price cost, it sounds like cloud could be more where I should be able to look for and maybe get the grin on the checkbook to get this going. Is that what I'm reading, or is that what I'm listening to, or?
Well, sure. So what we really set out to do is to come up with a response to your current 2003 server situation that is as positive for you cost-wise as possible. And of course that takes different shapes for different companies depending on their willingness to use the cloud, the appropriateness for the cloud for them, and of course their tendencies in terms of doing things on-premise or not. So it takes different shapes for different companies, but our goal is to help you hit that price point that you need to hit to lower your cost, and often the cloud is a major component in getting that done, especially if you have an environment where there's some malleability, if you will, in your environment, that it needs to grow and shrink on a seasonal basis or for tester development or anything like that. The other thing that's important about cloud is it's a great, very practical approach to DR. We, I think I coined the phrase that the cloud makes the possible practical, or that it's a great way to overall lower your total cost. But our approach there isn't limited only to cloud.
And John, I'll tell you what, the customers we've done this for, they try to eliminate that upfront cost, not just for the hardware and the storage, but also the operating system that you would have to go out and purchase. The nice thing about the cloud is when you put it in there, you're paying a small monthly fee with no upfront price, and it includes the OS. So for those guys that are saying no, it's a lot easier for them to say yes when it's such a small monthly number.
Right. I mean, if I was looking at a traditional way of upgrading from 2003 to say 2012, I have to upgrade all the CALs. I have to upgrade then my terminal services licensing. Not to mention then it costs then the physical attributes of doing the forest and a domain upgrade, and then boom, I'm at the latest and greatest in that flash. So if I'm understanding this correctly, Azure, then my Active Directory structure is in the cloud.
It can be, yes.
So the logons from our 19 to 20 sites are via Azure?
Right.
Instead of traditional from wherever our domain controllers are sitting throughout the WAN?
Absolutely, and this way, I think Microsoft has some pretty big pipes going into the cloud. So I'll bet you their logins get reduced substantially when you're now hitting a big data center that might be geographically a lot closer to your locations, because they have data centers all over the country. So they don't have to always come back to you to home run all the way back to you. You can hit one of 5 different data centers in the U.S.
Yeah, so I would add to that, it obviously depends on workload and how that workload is running on that server environment, on pricing, but you do have a lot of options that makes things even more possible. For example, as Paul said, disaster recovery, high availability. Now that you're in Azure, you get that, and you don't simply get it for free, but you now have other options that weren't available to you on premises. So what I would recommend is absolutely look at that. And the other thing that I was talking about is there's other funding that we can leverage with the use of Champion to see what workloads make sense to save you money moving to Azure and the cloud. Absolutely.
And we do an Azure cost estimator as part of the assessment. So you'll have at least a ballpark figure of what it's going to cost.
So, and I think the other thing that I would say is, I know we're saying cloud a lot here. What I would say from a Microsoft perspective, to saying exactly what Champion said, we are committed to on-premises, we're committed to private cloud hosted, and also the public cloud Azure. So any of those scenarios we need to be able to offer as a solution to the customer.
So does that answer your questions, John?
It answers it and opens up more questions.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll reach out to you after the webinar, and we can go into as much in-depth as you want.
I appreciate it. In fact, your company actually helped us move from to Exchange Online, which is why I'm leaning with you guys. I mean, it was such a smooth transition, and it was such an eye-awakening for this company and myself. I mean, I'm a traditional systems admin. I mean, it's like, we have our Exchange, you have your servers, you have domain controllers, and then, virtualization, cloud technology.
It's a great world we're in, isn't it, John? It's a great world.
Oh, it would be a great world if I just didn't have to hear no 97% of the time. We're a company now that basically has to make a decision. And either we go traditionally and pay for the licensing and then do a traditional, or I would like to get them to, like any good admin, I want to put as many plethora of ways of looking at it and let them decide financially which is the best way to go. I mean, personally, I like cloud. Honest reason, I don't have to do Exchange backups anymore. That to me is just like that is a huge load off my table. If I can migrate, I mean, I can actually lessen our electrical footprint on our data center.
You're